Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys here joining me. We got a bunch of things to talk about today, some Avengers stuff. We're going to talk a little bit of Black Panther. Jason Inman joins me for a subject as well. We're going to have a whole bunch of other movie news to run down. But before we get started on any of that, let's go right off the top to talk about a couple things here. Last night, I saw the new movie A Wrinkle in Time. Of course, Reese Witherspoon, Mindy Kaling, Oprah Winfrey, and a terrific cast of child actors as well. Like, absolutely terrific. Now, the review embargo lifts today at 9 a.m. That is 1 hour from now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my review live at 9 a.m. so that way, if you have any specific questions, without spoilers, if you have any specific questions about the movie, I can answer them as well. So I'll give my review, then I'll take a few minutes to take live questions about the movie as well. But the social media embargo has already lifted. Now, we already saw that from the premiere, there were some mixed reactions about A Wrinkle in Time from people who were at the premiere. Well, last night, I was at a screening of it last night, and I'm going to say this. You know how there's this myth out there? There's this total myth that film critics will give any movie with a female lead, or any movie with a non-white lead, or any Disney movie, critics will give those movies a pass. Wrinkle in Time is about to destroy those myths. I will tell you what I said in my tweet. My tweet was this: Wrinkle in Time is a beautifully envisioned movie that is just put together very badly, or badly put together. That's my tweet. Now, I can't share much more than that because that's the limit of my social media sharing. That's the most I can tell you is what my tweet was. But I will tell you this. Walking out of the theater last night, bumped into Holly, John Schnepp's girlfriend, and one of the coolest ladies in Hollywood. I like her a lot. But anyway, coming out, and I asked, "Oh, what did you think?" And she looked at me, she goes, Oh, I walked out 30 minutes ago. Anyway, so there was that. It was fun. She's just got such a great wit, great sense of humor. Anyway, so it was really cool bumping into her. But anyway, so there's that. Once again, 9 o'clock, I'll do my full review live here on the channel at 9. Also off the top, I wanted to mention this. Infinity War dropped a whole bunch. I believe the number is 18 character posters for Infinity War. They look pretty cool. Nothing mind-blowing here. They look pretty cool. Couple of things to note, though. I do not like that they call Spider-Man Iron Spider. You guys know my feeling on this. Why isn't Spider-Man special enough that you had to, in his very first movie, already make him Iron Man Jr.? That bothers me. It really does. Spider-Man is special enough that you don't have to make him Iron Man Jr. But anyway, there's that. But noticeable from their absence of these 18 posters, number one, no Hawkeye. One of the original members of the Avengers in the first Avengers film, no Hawkeye. And also, no Ant-Man. No Ant-Man. I mean, there's a couple of other people missing as well, but I can see those. But those are two prominent ones that I see missing here. No Hawkeye, no Ant-Man. What does that mean? Does that mean they've got some secrets in the movie? Does that mean they don't even think they're that important anymore? I mean, I don't know where they're going with that. But for whatever reason, we don't see those two posters. I mean, they're nice posters. Again, nothing that's rocking my world or anything like that. So we'll just have to see how that goes. Now, we've got some emails that you guys have sent in that we're going to get to. But before we get to those emails, I want to make sure if you watch the John Campea Show, you get caught up to date with everything going on in the world of movies and television and stuff like that. So this is a little segment to get you caught up that we call the Movie Newsfeed. First up, Black Panther just keeps rolling and crushing milestones at the box office. According to Variety, Black Panther has surpassed Beauty and the Beast to become the 9th highest grosser in North America of all time in only 18 days of release. However, The King of Wakanda may face its first slightly stiffer competition this weekend, as films including A Wrinkle in Time, which has been tracking to launch at around the $30 million mark to $38 million range, 3 other titles including Gringo, Hurricane Heist, and The Strangers Pray at Night are tracking to open with less than $10 million each. Next up, the first trailer and look at the upcoming Disney film Christopher Robin hit online yesterday, and it was just wonderful. The film is directed by Mark Forster, who directed such films as Finding Neverland, Stranger Than Fiction, and The Kite Runner, and stars Ewan McGregor as the title character Christopher Robin, and MCU's Agent Carter herself, Hayley Atwell. Christopher Robin, the little boy from the Winnie the Pooh stories, is now all grown up and has lost all sense of imagination. Pooh and his friends re-enter Christopher's life to help him find it again. The film opens nationwide on August 3rd. Next, Danger Will Robinson from Dark Horizon. Netflix has released the first full trailer for its upcoming Lost in Space remake, which runs for 10 episodes and premieres on the streaming service on April 13th. The story is set 30 years in the future. Colonization in space is now a reality, and the Robinson family is among those tested and selected to make a new life for themselves on a better world. But when the new colonists find themselves abruptly torn off course to their new home, they must forge new alliances and work together to survive in a dangerous and alien environment light years from their original destination. Next up, continuing on the theme of new trailers, FX released their first trailer for their upcoming second season of their popular and critically praised show, Legion. From coming soon, the network announced last March that the series from creator Noah Hawley, Fargo, would be receiving a second season in 2018 after Legion was one of the most watched new cable dramas when the first season aired. I didn't even like the first episode of Legion when it first aired, and then people got me to give it another chance, and now I'm completely hooked on it. The second season will premiere on FX on Tuesday, April the 3rd. And finally, the writing has been on the wall for a while, but The Walking Dead may actually be a dead man walking, pardon the pun. According to TV by the Numbers, The Walking Dead hit its lowest adults 18 through 49 rating since season 1 on Sunday. The show scored a 2.9 in the 18 to 49 demographic. It was the first time The Walking Dead dipped below a 3.0 score since the next to last episode of season 1 in November of 2010. It was off by 0.7 of a point from the previous week's 3.6. Sunday's 6.82 million total viewers was the smallest audience for the show since exactly 6 years earlier. And that'll do it for today's installment of the Movie News Feed. And that gets you guys caught up on everything going on in the world of movie news and television. And now it's time for us to get to the emails that you guys have sent in. By the way, how do you guys send in an email for the John Campea Show? Simple, just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line and make sure to keep those emails to 90 words or less. And we start off with the first email of the day. And this one comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Amin, who writes, with Oscar ratings declining each year, do you think it's because of the types of films that get nominated? Previous years, where films like Return of the King and Avatar were nominated, more people watched the show because they actually knew/enjoyed those films. If a film is great and worth honoring, like Logan, then I think nominating these films will give the general audience a reason to invest their time in watching that year. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Amin. And yeah, look, there's no doubt, there's no getting around when there aren't any big blockbusters that are up for Best Picture and aren't in the running. And when I say big blockbuster, I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about people went out to see them en masse. Lots of people in the public have seen these movies, so that when you don't have any of those movies, and all the movies nominated, look, as great as Three Billboards is, and as great as Shape of Water is, and as great as Call Me By Your Name is, and yada, 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 not tons of people went to go see them. They are the best movies of the year, but not a lot of people went to go see them. And so when you have these movies being the ones that get nominated, then what happens is there's not really a reason for people to tune in and watch. However, I will say this. Oh well. The point of the Oscars is not to make a highly rated television event. The point of the Oscars is for the movie industry to honor the best in movies that year. You don't just nominate something that doesn't deserve nominating. And remember too, it's not like there's a panel of 5 people who sit down and decide what gets nominated. It's thousands of people who register votes anonymously that gets the nomination process in place. That nobody sits down. There's not a group of 3 or 4 people who sit down and go, let's nominate this year. No, there's a voting base of like 6,000 or 7,000 people. So you can't even coordinate it even if you wanted to. The answer here is not to just nominate films that don't deserve it. The answer here, I believe, is to just keep honoring the best in film. And if the TV ratings are up, great. If the TV ratings are down, who cares? The point of the Oscars is not to have a highly rated TV show. The point of the Oscars is for the movie industry to celebrate excellence in the movies. And if there are years that tons of people want to tune in, great. If there are years that tons of people don't, okay. There are still things you can do. Like I put up a video the other day called 5 Ways to Improve the Oscars. There are still things you can do without nominating the wrong films to increase the appeal, shorten that damn show up. Like shorten it. Get rid of a couple of categories, maybe do a little of this, maybe do a little of that. But as far as you don't purposefully nominate a film, hey, we went through our legitimate process. Did Logan get nominated? No. Well, it'll bring in more TV viewers if it does, so let's just nominate. You see what I'm saying? So that's not the answer. Because, again, the purpose of the Oscars is not to have a highly rated television event. The purpose of the Oscars is for the movie industry to honor excellence. And if people want to watch, great. And if they don't, that's fine. Anyway, that's just my personal opinion on it. What do you guys think? Jump into the comment section and let me know. All right, let's move on now to the next email today. And the next email today comes to us from Brandon Lawrence, who writes, "Hey, John, big fan from Niagara Falls, Ontario. I love Niagara Falls. Ann and I actually just spent, I go up and spend Christmas in Canada, and we went and spent New Year's Eve in Niagara Falls. So we were actually there. I spent a lot of time in Niagara Falls. I went to college there and everything. I love it. Biopics have changed over the years. It used to be that a biopic often focused on a huge portion of a person's life over decades of events. Chaplin, Malcolm X, etc. Now it seems most biopics choose to focus on one specific chapter of their life of the person in question. Selma, Darkest Hour. Why do you think this might be?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And you're right. On one hand, Brandon, that we are seeing more of these films. For instance, the Steve Jobs film that was just out. It just focused on a couple of specific events. Darkest Hour focuses on one very small period of time in Winston Churchill's career. We're seeing this happen more and more. I would make the argument that those aren't biopics. Darkest Hour isn't a Winston Churchill biopic. Darkest Hour is an event, is a movie about an event, which was that period of Britain in that war, and it was with the central character being Winston Churchill. But see, I don't see that as a biopic. There are other films that come out that focus on a specific event in history where one character may be the central character, but that's not necessarily a biopic of that character. So you're right, we are seeing a rise in these types of movies, but I would just contend that these movies aren't biopics. Like you're suggesting, biopics really cover a grander scale of time about a person. When you look at the life of the person, not at a single event. So I would suggest when you get a movie that focuses on one event mostly, then the movie's really about that event. It's not about the life story of that character. Therefore, I don't call it a biopic. That's just my opinion. What do you guys think? Jump down to the comments section and let me know. All right, and we move on now to the final email of the day. And the final email today comes to us from Emily Milmet, who writes, "Hey, John, husband got me hooked on your show, and this is my first time writing." Well, thank you so much, and welcome for joining us, Emily. I know you love Black Panther, but I've also heard you say you shouldn't be afraid to point out faults or plot holes in movies you love. That is true. So I want to challenge you. What are the biggest plot holes to you in Black Panther? All right, thanks a lot for the question, Emily. And you're right. I do often say, if you love a movie, you should be totally secure enough in your love for that movie that you can have a conversation pointing out what you think the faults are in it. Because no movie is perfect. No film is perfect. Every film has problems or whatever. And Black Panther is a movie I love. I've gone to see it in the theater multiple times. I'm going to see it more times in the theater. But yes, there are things about it that I think are a little bit problematic. There are. So instead of just telling you what I think they are, I thought I would tell you what they think they are while being in a discussion with a good friend of mine, Jason Inman. Of course, Jason Inman, former host of DC All Access. He's also one of the co-creators of the comic book Jupiter. I keep on wanting to call him Jupiter Jet, that you can find on Comixology and in comic book stores everywhere. Anyway, so me and Jason decided to have this little conversation about Black Panther and what we kind of see as the plot holes. Here, check this out. Okay, Jason. So listen, I've never actually had a conversation with you before about Black Panther. So,
That's right.
like, what did you think about Black Panther? Did you like it?
I love Black Panther, man. I think you have to acknowledge that it has one of the strongest acting casts of any Marvel movie. Like some of the Marvel movies, you can usually pick out a hero or a villain that I think is kind of weak in terms of the delivery of their dialogue. But Black Panther, I don't think there's a weak person across the board. I think it's a lot of fun. Does it fall into the trap of, the climax isn't as great as the beginning of the movie, like a lot of superhero movies? Yeah, but, the movie was such a great ride that I didn't care.
It's kind of funny that when you talk about how the cast is just stellar all across, I found the one person who almost didn't fit in all that great was Academy Award winner Forrest Whitaker. I almost looked at him and thought, I just kind of see Forrest Whitaker going, well, okay, look, so here's the thing, Jay. So I was challenged because my viewers know how much I love Black Panther. I've been raving about the damn thing, and challenged me to say, because they say, hey, you always say, Campea, if you like a movie, you should be able to point out flaws. Okay, so here's 3 plot holes I found in Black Panther. All right. Plot hole number 1, Killmonger, he's got this hate on for the person who hates, he wants the throne of Wakanda, and he's really angry at the guy who killed his dad, which is T'Chaka.
Yes.
Why not come back and take the throne while T'Chaka is still king? Like, here's the thing. If you are a member of the royal family and you can challenge in combat for the throne at any time, why not come back when there's an old man sitting on the throne? Not to mention, it's the old man that killed your dad. Why?
His planning is off by about a week, right?
Yes. Like, why he waited all that time and then just decided to wait 1 extra week so he could fight a much better combat guy and not even have the pleasure of killing the guy who actually killed his father. When you consider in the movie how much he's driven by rage, you'd think that would be high on his priority list. Okay, so that's one. My second problem with this was the sudden turn of W'Kabi. Because in the movie, W'Kabi sets himself up as T'Challa's best friend. Hey, brother. And, and some people say to me, yeah, but John, he had a different worldview than T'Challa did. Sure, but when he mentions to T'Challa, hey, if you want me and my men to go clean up the world, I'll do it. And T'Challa says no, and he just goes, okay, whatever. He went from that to, I'm going to kill you in the drop of a hat. So that really bothered me through the film.
Rhinos.
Yes, I'm gonna stomp you to death with rhinos. And my third problem with this is the inconsistency with the end of Civil War on two fronts.
That is one of my plot holes as well.
Was it? Okay, so I've got it on 2 fronts here. On one front, first of all, it picks up right after he's flying around. And now he goes back, he becomes king. When was that Steve Rogers scene exactly? But the second thing is this. They're talking about having a new, Wakanda maybe going a new direction. King T'Chaka at the United Nations thing in the Civil War said it's time for Wakanda to start sharing with the world and becoming more a part of the global community. And then we get into Black Panther, and it's like they just forgot all about that speech that King T'Chaka just gave. So I don't know. So those are my. How would you respond to those 3 things? And did you see any plot holes in the movie?
I think those are strong, especially because one of mine was as well the MCU timeline of Black Panther, because I believe they say in the opening scene that it was 7 days,
a week or less than a week, something like that.
So Civil War has some time warping of its own. If you notice how many times the heroes go back and forth from Russia, because Captain America spends the last half hour of the movie going from Germany to Russia. And in the same amount of time, Tony Stark goes back to America, to the raft, to Russia within minutes. So there's a lot of time there. And then you have to suppose that if the beginning of Black Panther is T'Chaka on this other mission, then we're probably a couple of days after Civil War. So that means that Civil War took place in 4 days. 4 days is that entire movie. That's a lot of plot in one time. The only other plot hole that I have is just the size of the vibranium meteor that hits Wakanda, because if it is as giant as we are shown in that movie, that it goes down for miles and it seems to expand in every direction, that would have been an extinction level event and killed every human being on Earth if it was that big. I mean, that's bigger than the Grand Canyon almost.
And on top, I never even considered that. And here's the other thing, too. If they have so much vibranium, and, Claw says earlier in the film, they weave it into their clothes, why is T'Challa the only guy with a Black Panther suit? Why doesn't every member of the Wakandan military have a vibranium suit if they have so much of it? So that's...
I know. Why hasn't Wakanda invented thought clothes? Like at every moment you just change your clothes. You know, it goes from t-shirt to like, you know, tuxedo in an instant.
And giant bottom lip ring.
There you go. Exactly.
Vibranium giant bottom lip ring. Well, look, this has been fun time. Look, even our most favorite of movies, we can always pick holes in and something and just having fun with. But this is Jason. Thanks so much for joining for this. Listen, if people want to find you on Twitter, where can people find you online and follow you on Twitter?
You can follow me on Twitter at Jawin, Jawin, and everywhere else on the internet with that same exact @ sign.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jason.
Thanks, John.
All right, it's always fun having Jason Inman around to talk about stuff. That's a good time. But listen, guys, what do you think? Like, look, most of us love Black Panther, but what are some of the problems that you have with it? Jump down. Oh, and, and Jason and I talked about after that, the meteor hitting, saying it would have wiped out humanity. Obviously, they say in the precursor of the movie that humanity was before the time of man. But still, that kind of a meteor that big striking Earth would have wiped out all life on Earth, like even if it was before the time of man. So it's an interesting little thing to take a look at. But maybe vibranium hits the Earth a little bit differently. I don't know. Maybe lots of explanations to all the stuff that we talked about. All right, guys, listen, I've got 10 minutes left in the show today, so I'm going to do what I like to normally do around here, which is take some of your live questions that you guys have been sending in. And listen, guys, any live questions that I don't get to today, I will pick up on open mic a little bit later today. All right, so we get things started with the live questions today. And the first one comes to us from Adam Griffin, who writes, we got a nor'easter here in Philly. What are some of your go-to snowed-in movies in Canada? My wife and I are doing a Thor 3 and Coco double feature. That's a good double feature. Actually, that's a fantastic... I actually did that double feature over Christmas. I did the Thor 3 and Coco double feature over Christmas, which was great. I mean, I got given a couple of advanced copies of the Thor 3 and the Coco Blu-rays. And up there in Canada at my parents' place, decided one night to sit down. Those are good ones. Star Wars movies are usually, homesick or snowed in or whatever. My go-to movies were usually Star Wars movies. Next one comes to us from Rex Cousins, who writes, John, I'm sorry about my question yesterday. Didn't mean to upset you or anybody watching. Keep up the great work. Hey, Rex, there was nothing wrong. By the way, Rex is referring to a question he sent in yesterday on the open mic show. You might notice that you can't find yesterday's open mic show. That's because about halfway through the show, for whatever reason, there was a YouTube hiccup. And about halfway through the show, all of a sudden, like the video and the audio were 3 seconds off sync, and it was just unwatchable. I tried to do some things to fix it, couldn't, so I just took it down because it's just unwatchable, and I don't want that being up there reflecting the quality of the show that we do. Sorry, and I apologize. It was outside of my control. Rex brought up, but Rex, you have nothing to apologize for. You asked a totally fair question in a respectful and reasonable way. Shouldn't have upset anybody. It certainly didn't upset me. Not at all. So no need to apologize, Rex. Chris Miner writes, just rewatched Winter Soldier and still love it. That movie's great. I still remember walking out of of seeing Winter Soldier the first time. And I think I was with Roth Cornett. And me and Jennings Roth walked out of the theater and we just looked at each other like right outside the door of the theater and went, I can't believe what we just saw. Like, it was just outstanding. I'd never seen a comic book movie like that. That political intrigue, the political thriller movie was so good. I love that movie. Still, for a lot of people have Winter Soldier on like their top 5 or even number 1 all-time favorite comic book movie. Kevin Bennett writes, even though Black Panther was fantastic, I demand Marvel produce an Ava DuVernay cut and put it on the Blu-ray. We should start a petition, don't you think? Very nice jab at this whole give us the Zack Snyder cut of the movie fiasco going on. Nicely played, Kevin. Nicely played. I love that comment. Let's move on here. Luis writes, hey, John, yesterday sent you an appreciation mail. Well, thank you so much, man. Look, I get about 100 plus emails a day. I read every single email I get. Sometimes I'm a little behind, so I haven't gotten around to probably yesterday's emails yet, but thank you so much for sending that in, man. I appreciate that. Next one comes to us from Daniel Briggs writes, are you going to do a review of the Christopher Robin trailer, or is it too short? It's too short to do a review for. I'll wait till it does a full trailer. But I did put out on social media that I think I wrote on Twitter, words cannot describe the size of the smile on my face after watching that Christopher Robin trailer was so magic. When Winnie the Pooh shows up and he's talking in that, I can't do Winnie the Pooh's voice, and he's talking in that Winnie the Pooh voice, And he says, I've cracked. And he goes, I don't see any cracks. Maybe a few wrinkles. I mean, it made my heart happy. It just made my heart happy. I cannot wait to see this movie. Shankar writes, with the moving of Rampage's release date, which movie do you think will get negatively affected by it the most? Pacific Rim 2 or Ready Player One? I don't think there's going to be a lot of impact, to be honest with you. I think it'll probably not make very big waves. I mean, look, Rampage was not going to be a $700 million film. It's not going to be a $700 million film. It's not going to be really disruptive. So for those of you who didn't hear, because Avengers Infinity War moved back a week to April 27th, Rampage was supposed to open on April 20th, so they decided to put a little bit more space between them and Infinity War, which was a good idea, and they moved it back one more week, so now Rampage opens on April 13th. That's what Shankar is talking about. All right, let's move on here. Ali Hussein writes, R does Wolf cute and friendly, just like... R does Wolf cute and friendly, just like the Ewoks. P.S. I want to talk about Star Wars Rebels, but I can't. Okay, I'm not really quite sure about the first part of your question. Something about the wolves? Not really sure. Yeah, I'm going to put up a video later today. I was going to try to do it yesterday, but I ran out of time. I'm going to put up a video later today about the series finale of Rebels. And it's going to be titled, Why I Love and Hate the Series Finale of Rebels, because I've got both feelings. There's things about that I just loved, a couple things about I completely hated, but I'll talk about those in the video a little bit later today. Mike Thompson writes, been feeling kind of worthless lately, but your videos always help me get through tough times. Just wanted to say thank you for promoting positivity. Mike, thanks so much for that email, man. And look, believe me, I'm not going to tell you, buck up, champ. No. We all feel that way sometimes. We all do. I do, you do, everybody watching this video does. And kudos to you for finding outlets that help lift your spirits a bit. Believe me, you come through the other side. You will. You'll come through the other side of this. But don't feel like there's something wrong with you because you feel that way. We all go through periods of feeling that way. And I'm glad that there's not just me, but everybody here who's in the live comments section. We can talk with each other, lift each other up, have some fun, and it just helps us get a little bit of perspective when we move through to the other side. So thanks for sharing that with us, Mike. Next one comes to us from Jordan Boo, who writes, Christopher Robin looks amazing. I'm so excited to hear Jim Cummings voice Pooh. I know, right? That's really exciting. The Jim Cummings is voicing Pooh again. The movie reminds me of Hook. Yeah, it does have a bit of a Hook feel to it, doesn't it? I mean, without the bangarang. I mean, it does have a Hook feel to it. And really, the cast list is very impressive. If you go onto IMDb and look down the voice cast list, like besides Ewan McGregor and Haley Atwell, who I'm excited about both of them in the live action roles, seeing the voice cast as well is really, and of course, having Jim Cummings there is just like the cherry on the cake. All right, we move on to the next question. TF writes, I've watched all the Cloverfield movies recently, and I'm really fascinated by them because of how random it all feels. However, after the third film, I'm completely confused as to what's going on. I don't see this thing with the Cloverfield. I think they're very loosely connected. And I'll be straight up with you. I can't even remember the name of the third Cloverfield movie. I did a review for it. I didn't even like the last Cloverfield movie. They released straight to Netflix. And after watching, I'm like, oh, this is why they released it straight to Netflix. It's not very good. I mean, some people like it. If you liked it, that's great. I celebrate that you liked it. For me, it was not so good. But I wouldn't look too hard to finding the solid connective tissue between them because I think they were always meant to be a loosely connected series of movies, if you will, rather than like a cinematic universe. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe the fourth film will shed more light on that. We'll just have to wait and find out. All right. Next up comes to us from Jeremy in Ohio, who writes, so am I the only one who thinks Rotten Tomatoes' new redesign is hideous? You know what? I have not seen Rotten Tomatoes' new redesign. Let me open it up here for a second and take a little quick peek. Oh, yeah, that's hideous. That's awful. But then again, maybe a part of that is just that we're so used to it looking one way. Maybe it's, I mean, I always got to take in consideration that sometimes my negative reaction to something might be because I'm used to it being a certain way. And now that I just see it's different, it doesn't jive with me. So let's take a couple of weeks and see how we feel about it later. But I'm with you. My first reaction is, ugh. But maybe that's just because it's not what I'm used to. Who knows? Let's give it a couple of weeks and see what we think about it then. Thanks for bringing that to my attention, Jeremy. All right, let's move on here. Next one comes to us from Alan Gonzalez, who writes, could you point me in the right direction to be in a movie? If you just want to be in a movie, the best thing to do, well, first of all, if you don't live in New York or one of the major cities, it's going to be tough. But the easiest way to do it is find a casting agency that just specifies in extras for movies. There are casting agencies that just focus on extras. So like a film that's shooting will say, hey, we need about 40 extras. We want diverse ethnicities. We want them range here to here. And they're going to wear these kind of clothes. We need about 40 of them next Thursday at this place. Well, then what they'll do, instead of the studio doing that themselves, they go to an extras agency. And the extras agency has a big list of all people who are registered with them. They go through, pick out a bunch of people that fit the requirements that the studio's asking for, and you'll get called and go in for a day. And maybe you can be one of those people sitting in the restaurant in the background as the main characters are at the other table talking and you're just there in the background. That is the easiest way to get into a movie. I've been an extra in a number of films, and it's really easy. You even get paid to be in it. Not a ton, but you get paid to be in it. So that's the easiest way to be in a movie. Let's see. On to Vegas. Oh, I love that screen name. On to Vegas. I'm going to Vegas in a couple of weeks here at the end of April for the annual CinemaCon event, but I'll talk about that later. On to Vegas writes, a couple of days ago in a chat, you talked comeback stories. I thought of Robert Downey Jr. and Mickey Rourke. Both had dark days with addiction. Rourke has been MIA. Any deal? What's up? With Mickey Rourke, look, this is me strictly speaking from interpretation of events, all right? Do not take anything I take here as fact, all right? I'm just giving you my interpretation of events. I've talked to a number of filmmakers who have worked with Mickey Rourke. And from what I hear, and again, this is all secondhand. I have not, seen this happen. This is all secondhand. So it could be completely true, might not be true. So take this for what it's worth, all right? But I have talked to a number of filmmakers and heard stories that other people have heard too from a number of filmmakers that Mickey Rourke apparently, after his resurgence, it may have all gone to his head and he became very, very difficult to work with. That's just what I've heard. I mean, again, I haven't experienced that. I haven't, had to think, but I know there's this one time I went to do a press junket interviews with Mickey Rourke. And I went to the hotel, the studio invited me, and to interview Mickey Rourke and a number of other cast members from this particular movie. And it was the one with Henry Cavill, the one where Luke Evans played Zeus. I'm forgetting. Immortals is the name of the film. And Mickey Rourke was supposed to be there, and he just decided he didn't want to show up. Or he showed up for about a half hour, decided, I want to go do this instead. And then he left. And all these journalists who were sitting there were invited to come down and speak to him, sitting around in a room for like 3 or 4 hours waiting for him because he was late to start with. And then he split. But I just talked to a number of people that just said he became very, very difficult to work with. And if that's true, and that's a huge if, it would explain why maybe filmmakers just didn't want to work with him anymore. If he's more trouble than he's worth to have on screen, then maybe he's just not worth. And then I saw him in a couple of movies, including a few that it just looked like he was sleepwalking through. So it's a shame because the guy is so super uber talented. All right, time for just 2 more here. This one comes to us from Andrew Reese, who writes, how do you think about a reboot of Spy Kids would do? Or how do I think a spy? I don't know. They've been there, done that. I mean, look, the idea of targeting those types of movies at younger adults, I mean, there could be some success there. It's funny, Spy Kids 2 was one of the first movies, like real Hollywood movies, that the visual effects company and the CG animation company that I worked at, that we got contracted to do a scene in. So I have a very special affection for Spy Kids because it kept us in business at the time. And I don't know, maybe it could do all right, actually, now that I think about it. I mean, not with the same kids, obviously, but maybe it could do some damage at the box office. Sam Fisher writes, the YouTube channel Because Science did a video on the meteor hitting Wakanda. Search on YouTube, Because Science Vibranium Meteor. It's the first one. Okay, well, actually, there you go. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Sam. I'm going to have to check that out now. See how right or completely wrong our hypothesis was. And last question I will take today. And don't worry, guys, if you guys have sent in questions that I don't have time for, again, I will answer those right off the top on this afternoon's edition of Open Mic. That will hopefully not have the video and audio out of sync. Matthew Alvis writes, if they remade Face Off, who would you cast in the lead roles? No one will live up to Travolta and Cage, but Michael Shannon and Tom Cruise could be fun. Yeah, that could be fun. Look, you know me, X actor in X movie, I don't care as long as they're talented actors. But if you're going to recommend to me Michael Shannon and Tom Cruise, that could be fun. Although, you know, there are very different types of actors. If I want to get another actor that was like a Tom Cruise, who would I put opposite Tom Cruise that would kind of be in that same vein? But here's the thing. You'd also have to get people that are relatively the same height because they're supposed to be able to pass for each other. Michael Shannon is a tall dude. Tom Cruise, not so much. So you couldn't really have those two together. It's an interesting question. Let me throw it just to you guys then in the chat and in the comment section. Who would be, because they have to be relatively the same size, kind of in the same genre of acting, who would you put in a face-off reboot? I would love to hear what you guys kind of suggest. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today, for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, at 9 a.m., that's just like 25 minutes from now, I'm going to do a live stream of my review of Wrinkle in Time, so that way I can take any specific questions you guys have, as long as they're not super spoilery. I can take any specific questions you have as well, so come back in like 20, 25 minutes for that as well. Guys, listen, if you are somebody who enjoys my programming, do me a favor. Head on over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what it means to be a Patreon supporter of mine, how being a Patreon supporter keeps my shows on the air, and what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. And then maybe you'll decide to be a Patreon supporter too, and that would be amazing. Also, guys, don't forget, you can just follow me on Twitter. Just jump on Twitter. Make sure you're following me, just at John Campea. That'll do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.